Welcome to Rewatch-and-Rank. On this channel, we rewatch older TV shows, provide a summary and opinion on the episode before ranking each episode against each other, and today's episode is Merlin Season 5, Episode 9, The Kindness of Strangers. Episode in a nutshell is a brief reminder of what happens in the episode. So in this episode, it begins with Morgana chasing after Alator, who we had met previously, who had kidnapped Gaius and been told Merlin's identity. Morgana is now coming after him to learn Emerson's identity, which is Merlin, and she does successfully capture Alator. However, before she captures him, Alator has, off-screen, sent Finna, one of his followers, to find Merlin to give him a warning. And we do see that Finna does approach Merlin and basically requests to speak with him and tells him where she will wait for him. Merlin brings this information to Gaius. Gaius, based on a tattoo on her arm, sees that she is part of the old religion and therefore can't trust her and tells Merlin not to go there. If he had any regard for him, don't go and see this woman. And Gaius is worried and guilty because Alator, he's the one who told Merlin's identity, and he doesn't want that to come back and haunt him. So Merlin agrees. However, as he's thinking about it, he keeps thinking about it and thinking about it. Meanwhile, Gaius goes behind his back to Arthur and claims a patient told him about an old woman practicing sorcery out in the ruins. And we do see in the ruins that Finna sends off a crow to Morgana's prisons, and she is sending it to Alator, but it is left ambiguous because she speaks, obviously, in the magical language, and the only word that's really discernible is Morgana Pendragon, which is what then makes her, again, ambiguous. But then we see the crow arrive at Alator's cell, and it carries the message that she's located Emrys and is going to help him, and that Alator doesn't need to worry anymore. While Alator is being tortured, one of Morgana's men, who are Saxons at this point, are her new allies now, come in and says they found the letter. She then kills Alator and starts hunting for Finna. The knights are also hunting for Finna based on Gaius's word. Merlin goes out at night to find Finna, manages to find her, but then, of course, the knights attack. He uses magic to escape, tells her to run. The next day, he goes out to find her, is kind of caught by the knights, but then Mordred lets him escape, and Merlin then goes to find Finna. However, once he finds her, Morgana then doesn't arrive, but her men, her scouting party, that's what it would be. Her scouting party arrives, and Merlin ends up wounded with an arrow. Him and Finna escape together. They go to an old tower to hide. Finna basically tells him that, they believe, her and Alator believe in the world that he is going to create with Arthur, and they want to see that happen, and so they have come to give him a warning, and she gives him a wooden box telling him to guard it, that it's precious, asks for his sword as Morgana's men come into the tower. Merlin heads to the roof of the tower. Finna meets Morgana and kills herself with the sword in order to not be revealing Merlin's identity. And Merlin, who is on the roof, after Morgana and her men leave, burning the body behind them, is saved by Kilgara, who he manages to call before he loses consciousness. When he wakes up, he's in the forest. Kilgara has healed him and reveals that his time is coming, and he's very old. It's the way nature works. He's fine with it, but obviously Merlin is a little upset about it, but there's nothing that he can do because, Kilgara is dying of old age. And And then we see him and Gaius going over the box and what was in it, which turns out to be a prophecy, the prophecy of Camlan, which foretells Arthur's death. And Finn also, before she died, told him not to trust the druid boy, so obviously don't trust Mordred. And as they are going over the prophecy, Arthur and his knights come in and show a knight who has no face. And this is revealed to be an ancient ritual used by the high priestesses, which causes skin to grow over the face until the person suffocates, and was considered a declaration of war in this context because it was a knight of Camelot that they used this on, and that is the cliffhanger we end this episode on. So now that we've been reminded about what happened in the episode, we'll now rank the episode, as always, first on the mostly objective ranking, followed by the personal ranking. And so we have single episode supporting character introduction worth 1 point is Finna. Single episode supporting character development. Before dying by the sword to keep Merlin's identity, Finna gives Merlin a box which contains the Camlan prophecy, which I felt was an important enough development to add some extra points. Then we have +2 for our multi-episode supporting character introduction, and Morgana's main ally now, who is the leader of the Saxons, who is helping her, is Baroun, Beroun is how it was spelt online. He's helping her. He was introduced. He is in multiple episodes, so 2 points. Then we have the multi-episode supporting character development, which is Alator dying after being captured and tortured, and that is worth 2 points. Then we have the multi-episode supporting character development, the multi-season supporting character development, which is Kilgara revealing the fact that he is dying of old age to Merlin. And then we have the multi-season main character development, which is Merlin getting shot with an arrow and then being healed by Kilgara. And last but not least, we have the world building piece, which is called a Brigade. And again, it was an ancient, powerful, dark magic ritual. Grows skin across the victim's face. They then suffocate to death. And Gaius explains when the old religion was popular, it was both a punishment and also a ultimate warning from the high priestesses to their enemies, and that in the context it is used here, which is it was used on a Knight of Camelot, that this is Morgana's way of declaring war on Camelot, Arthur, the kingdom as a whole. And then I did take 2 points for Gaius going behind Merlin's back to talk about Finna, which almost ended up with Merlin being caught with her, which would have been a pretty bad look for him and caused a lot of trouble. And I mean, technically Merlin did go behind his back too to meet Finna after he asked him not to. Either way, there was a lot of going behind people's backs in this episode, which I thought was just negative behaviors. However, even with those -2 points, we're still at 15 points overall, making this a 10 out of 10 episode. And that brings the list for Season 5 to in first, Arthur's Bane, The Death Song of Uther Pendragon, The Desir. This episode is in fourth, The Kindness of Strangers, and it is in fourth because when more than one episode has the same score on the mostly objective ranking, it is just ranked in episode order. Then we have The Hollow Queen, With All My Heart, Another Sorrow, The Dark Tower, and in ninth so far we have A Lesson in Vengeance. My personal ranking for this episode is a 7 out of 10. It's a 7 out of 10 because it basically was a 45-minute drama to essentially get the prophecy into Merlin's hands. And that essentially was the whole point of it. So a lot of time. However, the reason it is a higher score, like a 7, is because it did have, the espionage factor, torture, tension, actual big magics, like Merlin makes an entire lineup of fire to block the knights when they're running away, and Morgana uses this far-seeing spell, and we have like the snake's return, the Nathir, which was used on Elian in a previous episode. It essentially had a lot of action, a lot of plot points. There was obviously the knights hunting while the Saxons were hunting, while Merlin and Finna were trying to sneak in between them all. So it had a lot that was happening, which was very interesting. Obviously, the prophecy is very key to the plot, so it's important as well. And then, the cliffhanger at the end with the guy with no face, creepy, and also a good place to end it. It makes for a exciting anticipation for the next episode. But I will say some of the scenes were a little dark, which with the brightness settings that I have made things very difficult to see, which wasn't great. There wasn't really any comedy, which is one of my favorite things about the Merlin series, at least the early seasons, was for all that it was like serious as well. There was a lot more levity and comedic moments in it, which I miss. Um, and it did feel just like a little bit boring at times because they were, it was a lot of sneaking around, a lot of back and forth. Basically, the entire episode was about getting this message to Merlin, and they had to go through a lot of effort just for that. However, again, even though it was a little bit more boring in comparison to other episodes, it still did have its moments, hence the 7 out of 10. And a high 7 out of 10. Which brings us to the personal ranking list, which was Arthur's Bane in first, Another Sorrow, With All My Heart, The Death Song of Uther Pendragon. I then decided to put this one in 5th place, The Kindness of Strangers, followed by The Hollow Queen, A Lesson of Vengeance, The Dark Tower, and The Desir. And that now brings us to the series ranking so far. Mostly objective ranking, we have Season 4, followed by Season 2, Season 3, and then Season 1 in 4th so far. Season 5 currently has a score of 72 out of a possible 110. On our personal side, we have Season 4, followed by 3, 2, 1, and then Season 5 is sitting at a 65 out of 110 so far, with 2 episodes to go. But with that, we have now rewatched and ranked Merlin Season 5, Episode 9, The Kindness of Strangers. Like and subscribe if you'd like to, and I'll see you in the next episode.